In this video, I want to share with you the tremendous healing power your body has and why using a homeopathic approach to PEMF therapy, energy medicine, and health in general puts you on the road to ever-increasing energy, health, and happiness. On the contrary, using a forceful allopathic, more is better approach in PEMF therapy and energy medicine may give you some symptomatic results in the short term, but it's an unnatural, stressful approach on the organs, tissues, and cells that creates an external force that the body has to defend against, which takes it out of its normal mode of healing, regeneration, and repair. So let's start first by talking about the philosophies of allopathic and homeopathic medicine. So allopathic medicine, I'm calling the numbing and dumbing approach, and you'll see why in a moment. Allopathic is derived from the prefix allo, which means other or against, and the suffix pathos, meaning suffering, sickness, or disease. So it's against disease. And as we'll see, against the symptoms too. So allopathic medicine's main approach to work with is to work against the symptoms and with the goal of removing them altogether using drugs, injections, and even surgery and sometimes other invasive procedures. In fact, diseases are labeled and tagged based on the symptoms that arise. One of the most popular reference books, the Merck Manual, is a prime example of categorizing diseases by their symptoms. So we have the formula, disease equals sickness equals the symptom. Now, pain is by far the most common symptom people want relief from. Arthritis, back pain, toothaches, neck pain, knee, hip, shoulder, fibromyalgia. And most diseases themselves, like cancer and Lyme disease, etc., have pain as a very unwanted side effect. So it seems that pain kind of springs up in most problems, even like heart disease, you get chest pain. So the medical approach or the allopathic approach is sort of to numb and dumb this pain by using prescription medications, which are just a temporary Band-Aid at best. And at worst, they create very unwanted side effects and addictions that harm the body and mind. This allopathic approach is like cutting the wire that supplies the current to the oil light in your car, warning you that there's an engine problem. So this is why we call the allopathic approach a numbing and dumbing approach, because it numbs the feelings so that you're not aware of that there's a problem, and it suppresses or dumbs down the human body's innate intelligence and energy fields. Now, having said all that, modern medicine does have its place in emergency care, broken bones, stitches, car accidents, severe burns, etc. And in life-threatening situations, surgery may be needed. But extending this approach to treating lifestyle diseases like obesity, type 2 diabetes, all these forms of pain, high blood pressure, cholesterol, indigestion, depression, etc., is not the answer, as evidenced by the continuing rise in obesity, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and cancer. Let's talk about the homeopathic approach, which I call the smart choice, because the homeopathic philosophy and modality is working with the body. So the word homeo means same or with, and again, pathos is disease, in this case, the symptom. So in homeopathy, we're working with the body's natural symptomatic response and its ability to heal itself. Now, there's 450 million people worldwide, it's estimated, that use homeopathy, including the royal family of England and many celebrities. And it's an approach that uses small forces or low intensities to stimulate and catalyze the body's own healing and repair systems. For example, the immune system, and it initiates the healing response. In homeopathy, symptoms are not the disease or the problem, but they're the energy fingerprint of your body's healing response to the stress, infection, disease, etc. So that's a big difference with allopathic medicine, which views the symptoms as the disease. Now, homeopathy is both informational medicine and energy medicine because it's working with your body's holographic energy and information fields. Just to go a little deeper into this, by carefully mapping the symptoms of a patient, a good homeopath gives a remedy to precisely match those very symptoms, because these symptoms are the energetic signatures of the body's healing response. This is referred to as the law of similars. In a process called potentiation, the vital energy of the diluted substance is activated. Homeopathic remedies are very potent because there's no adverse side effects or adverse reactions, because they're used in very low doses. In the example of pain relief, a homeopathic approach is to stimulate the body's ability to heal itself, thereby truly turning off the pain. Because if you heal the tissues, there's going to be no more pain. Now, this homeopathic philosophy that we're talking about, I'm not just talking about taking sugar pellets or homeopathic tinctures. Now, that's certainly good, and that's part of it, but I'm talking about an overall homeopathic philosophy which we can extend into PEMF therapy and energy medicine, because ultimately everything is energy. So when we work with energy medicine devices, we want to work with this homeopathic approach to stimulate the body's ability to healing itself. Now, I call this homeopathic philosophy the smart choice because it's catalyzing the body's near infinite intelligence. It's not a Band-Aid, it's more of a permanent fix. The key is homeopathy works with the body and its ability to heal itself. Allopathic medicine works by suppressing the symptoms and partially shutting down the body's healing response. So now I want to talk about this more is better philosophy. More is not better. Better is better. The other mistaken philosophy is the more is better approach to health, which relates to this allopathic philosophy. The more is better mentality is very pervasive in America and the Western society. It's the supersize me, give me more mentality that gets us into a lot of trouble. People think if small is good, more must be better. If one pill is good, 2 pills must be better. If 1 dose works, then 2 doses must work even better. This is a deep-seated faulty belief that needs to be cleansed from our consciousness. The truth is, more is not better, better is better. This more is better philosophy is very pervasive in PEMF therapy, which we'll talk about in the next video. High intensities are stronger and more effective than lower intensities. And this is just false, as we'll see. Now, I want to talk a little bit about power versus force. There's a saying that knowledge is power. And when it comes to your body, it has a near infinite intelligence and knowledge of how to heal itself. The body has 100 trillion cells, each with 100 trillion atoms, according to the University of Washington. There are more atoms in your body than there are stars in the entire universe. And it's estimated that each second in your body, there's around 500 billion chemical reactions. To put this staggering intelligence into perspective, every second, your bone marrow in your body is creating 2 million red blood cells. Think about that. There's no supercomputer in the world that can match this intelligence. We should fear messing with something as majestic, magnificent, and unfathomably complex and intelligent as the human body. The best we can do is give the body all the elements it needs in order to heal itself. And a homeopathic boost, if necessary, because the body does get stuck sometimes. It sometimes needs a little push. But it just needs a little push, to work with the natural healing response, which, again, the symptoms are a fingerprint of. Trying to use high doses or high-intensity PEMF devices or energy medicine devices is a forceful approach that backfires in the long run. Why? Because the body has to defend itself against this external force, which takes it out of its healing abilities. You might get temporary relief at the big price tag of compromising your body's innate healing intelligence. Unless you are dealing with an emergency situation under the guidance of a trained practitioner, you want to work with your body's intelligence, especially if you buy a device that you're going to use in your own home on a daily basis. You definitely want to stick with the safe, natural approach to continually stimulating and giving your body a boost so that it can constantly be healing and regenerating. The main takeaway from this video is that your body has a tremendous healing power innate within it that has a near infinite intelligence on how to maintain, sustain, and create perfect health. So by working with the body using a homeopathic approach to PEMF therapy, energy medicine, and health in general is going to be the most natural, safest, and most effective way to create greater health, vitality, and well-being. Hello, my name is Bryant Myers, author of the book PEMF, The Fifth Element of Health, and welcome to part 2 of my video series on the myths of high-intensity PEMF. In this video, we're going to look in more detail as to why the homeopathic approach to PEMF therapy is the best, safest, and most effective way to heal your body. And I want to expose the myths and the lies that are taught by companies that sell very high-intensity PEMF therapy devices. And when I say a homeopathic approach to PEMF therapy, I'm referring to the overall philosophy of working with the body to heal itself. Because ultimately, PEMF therapy and energy medicine devices do not heal the body. I repeat, no device is going to heal your body, but earth-based or natural PEMF therapy or homeopathic PEMF therapy devices gives your body an energetic boost, and it will catalyze and stimulate the body's ability and aid in its ability to heal itself. So let's look at some of these high-intensity devices and what they're saying. High-intensity PMF devices, as pictured here, you can see an image of some of them. I'm not going to name any names of any specific company or brand, but basically you'll know because these companies will teach you that you want more power, more higher intensity, that you'll get deeper penetration and faster healing. Okay, so these are some of the lies that these companies are teaching. And I really want to hopefully give you a very clear explanation as to why that's not true. Now, these high-intensity PMF devices are mainly sold for pain relief and pain-related issues. And yes, they can and do provide symptomatic relief, but so do low-intensity PMF systems, which I've actually worked with a few different brands over the past 8 years that are low-intensity devices. And they do work, even symptomatically. And, of course, they're also much more natural. And in the long run, as we'll see, they're more effective at healing and regeneration. Now, some of these high-intensity PMF devices use ridiculously high intensities, upwards to 2 Tesla, which is almost 100,000 times stronger than the natural field strength of the Earth. So our bodies are just not accustomed to an intensity that high. This is why I refer to these high-intensity systems as allopathic energy medicine, because they basically hit the body over the head like a proverbial sledgehammer with unnaturally high intensities and also high frequencies that are not healthy. Why use a sledgehammer when only a small hammer is needed? The result, like pain relief drugs, may provide some symptomatic relief, but at the expense of working against the body's natural ability to heal itself. So it's providing a force, an external force, that the body has to defend against and takes it out of its natural healing ability. Now, this is diametrically different than a more natural and homeopathic approach that works with the body and its symptoms to gently and more effectively help the body to heal better and faster. Now, there may be a time and place for high-intensity PMF devices, but only under the supervision of a trained practitioner and only for short periods of time. Now, for safe, affordable, daily applications and for a unit that you want to own in your own house, look for the lower intensity full body mat devices. Now, these high-intensity systems have an enormous profit margin. I don't want to make a stereotype because I know some salespeople out there are genuinely trying to help people. But because the profits can be upwards to $6,000 or more per sale, obviously that's a very high incentive. Now, let's take a look at some of the history of these high-intensity systems. Now, these high-intensity PMF devices were modeled after the original PEMF device, which was outlawed by the FDA in 2005. The man behind this was Panos Pappas, a math professor from Athens, Greece, who invented the PEMF, I believe, back in the 70s or 80s. So when the PEMF was outlawed, there was a couple companies that sprung up that tried to model it and create a new version of it. But it's still using the same principles that the PEMF device used. And, it creates a very high voltage and a very high intensity. Also, it's very expensive. A lot of these devices run for around $20,000, although they do start at around $10,000. But in my opinion, that's not the way to go. There's some other experts that show that there is maybe a time and place for those high-intensity systems. But I really adamantly think that you need to use those under the direct supervision of a trained professional. Don't buy one for home use. Now, just to kind of talk a little bit about what international agencies recommend as safe as far as intensity for using magnetic fields with the human biology. Now, the DIN is the Institute of Standards in Germany, and they recommend not going above 400 microtesla, which, again, these high-intensity systems are in the range of 1 Tesla. And so that's way, way higher than what's deemed as safe by the DIN in Germany. Also, there's an agency called the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. That's ICNIRP. And it's a worldwide authority on the safety related to electromagnetic energy. Both the European Union and the FDA both rely on their findings, so it's a very credible organization. And according to the ICNIRP, the limiting values for safety of time-varying PMFs are dependent on both frequency and intensity. They recommend that if you're working with lower frequencies, which is like the Earth, then you can go up to higher intensities, up to 5,000 microtesla. Higher frequencies, the safety limits go way down to like 5 microtesla. But in both cases, it's still a low intensity compared to what these high intensity systems are using. So now I want to just kind of give you a brief overview of the Schumann resonance and the natural field strengths of the Earth. What people don't realize is that the Schumann resonance, which has been shown to be an essential element, so essential that the Russian space program, the U.S. space program, if you look at Dr. Rutger Weber's early bunker studies in the 60s and 70s, the zero field studies by Valerie Hunt and others, has very conclusively shown that we need the Schumann resonance. It's sort of like the heartbeat of the Earth, and our internal biology and our circadian rhythms are very synchronized to this frequency. This energy and frequency actually works at the cellular level to actually energize the cell. So it works in a couple different ways, but it's only 1 picotesla. That's a very, very weak field. Now, we have very sensitive antennas to pick up this particular intensity, but that's just a trillionth of a Tesla. And yet it's essential. So that's showing us that the Earth is giving us a very gentle homeopathic dose of this essential frequency. And as I show in my book, it's really fascinating to me that the alpha brain state of your brain, according to EEG, has the almost identical waveform as the Schumann resonance. Also, the NASA study, which is a 4-year study that I go into detail in my book, just the brief conclusions was NASA found that low-intensity rapid time-varying waveforms using low frequency was the most effective for healing and regeneration. And I'll provide a link to that NASA study in the description below the video. So NASA also confirms that less is more, or that a lower intensity is more effective. And now I just want to briefly go over some of the myths promoted by high-intensity PMF companies. Myth number 1 is the lack of penetration. And I created a little video here on my YouTube channel you can check out. It's just a little video I did with my iPhone to show people that low-intensity PMF systems actually penetrate all the way through the body and even a few feet above. The fact that the high-intensity PMF devices penetrate deeper is just not true. The truth is, low-frequency PMF goes all the way through the body, sort of like breeze through the trees. You know, it just goes through your body completely, and there's no resistance there. And you don't need a high intensity for that to happen. The next myth is that high-intensity systems work faster. That's false. And again, the NASA study is very conclusive. Actually, low-intensity, low-frequency, rapid rise and fall waveforms will heal and regenerate the body the fastest. The last myth that I want to address is that some high-intensity PMF systems like to claim that lower-intensity PMF devices are ineffective because you can just lay on the grass and get the Earth's natural field strengths. Well, this is false, and for 2 reasons. Number 1, the magnetic flux on an Earth-based PMF mat is actually much more concentrated, so the field strengths are going to be stronger. And number 2, on a PMF mat, you're getting PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic fields. When you lay on the grass, you're just getting mainly the static DC field, especially when you measure with any magnetic field detector device. In fact, you can download on iTunes and Android a magnetic field detector app, and it will even graph the magnetic fields versus time. So you can see on an Earth-based PMF mat, you can see the rise and fall, the variation in the field, where when you go put it on the grass, it's just a flat line. Again, this is not a fair comparison because it was shown in the Eastern European studies that pulsed magnetic fields work a lot better than static fields. And yeah, when you lay on the grass, you are getting the Schumann resonance, but it's only 1 picotesla. And Earth-based PMF mats that use a field strength comparable to the field strength of the Earth's magnetic field, that's many orders of magnitude stronger. So it is a much more concentrated dose, and it's not the same thing as laying on the grass.